The Last of Us, it's finally back. HBO's The Last of Us, the live-action adaptation of the super popular Naughty Dog video game series The Last of Us, has finally returned, and it might just be better than ever. Now, I've talked about this topic a few times on this channel before, but the live-action adaptation, whether it's something like a live-action video game series or a live-action anime, has kind of been the holy grail, if you will, for like Hollywood and streaming companies for like the last 20, 30 years. I mean, just over the last few years alone, we've seen Hollywood and all sorts of streaming companies pump out all sorts of live-action movies and series, like the Halo live-action series, the Avatar: The Last Airbender series, an Until Dawn movie set to debut later in 2025, and who could forget the god-awful travesty that was the Minecraft movie from last year. To me, Season 1 of The Last of Us was one of the best examples of how to adapt a super popular video game franchise into a series, a live-action series, and with the way that Season 2 is going so far, it looks like it could get even better. So join me today as we discuss how The Last of Us cracked the live-action video game code. So the live-action adaptation, whether it's a video game, an anime, or an animated series, again, has been kind of the holy grail for Hollywoods and movie studios over the last 30 years. And really, if you think about it, it does make a lot of sense why these studios would be so obsessed with making live-action adaptations. So the goal for these people is to take a popular franchise with a ravenous, obsessed fan base, for example, something like Halo or the Avatar: The Last Airbender series, and then you turn these fans into paying customers to either watch your movie or pay for your streaming service. In the eyes of these studios, these fan bases are really just a kind of untapped gold mine and untapped money pit. The problem is that over the years, they have consistently butchered everything we love about these franchises, giving many people out there PTSD every time they see either their favorite video game franchise, anime, or animated series getting adapted into a live action. Now, don't get me wrong, the live-action adaptation has come a long way from how they were back in the day, whether it's Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, the original Mario Brothers movie, or something like M. Night Shyamalan's attempt at making an Avatar: The Last Airbender movie. For all the problems that many people in the Avatar fanbase had with Netflix's Last Airbender adaptation and the many changes that they made to the story, ultimately, I think it's undeniable that it is a much better representation of these characters, the world, and the story of Avatar as a whole, especially compared to whatever the f*** this was.
Okay, everybody can help us now!
I've done several videos going into the many problems with live-action adaptations, specifically with Avatar, so if you want to hear my thoughts on that, then click the I in the video above. Live-action video game adaptations, though, they are a bit trickier than trying to adapt something like an anime or an animated series. More often than not, a video game live-action adaptation, whether it be a movie or show, turns into a cheesy, low-effort homage to these video game franchises. Generally, a lot of these movies or shows kind of feel like they are trying way too hard to be video game adaptations. Like, let's take a look at the Doom movie with The Rock from 2005 just as an example. The Doom movie commits a lot of the kind of cardinal sins that come from video game adaptations. We got a lackluster original story, really bad acting, cheap and obvious references to the video game, really just to get a reaction out of the fans, as well as an inability to really understand how to translate video mechanics into a movie. Please, for the love of God, movie studios, stop doing this first-person bullshit. And really, the Doom movie was just an obvious misunderstanding of what the target audience love about the Doom franchise. Like, to me, it feels like a lot of these studios really just try so hard to make a video game movie with an obvious emphasis on the video game part that it always feels like it comes off like tacky and cheesy. Now, obviously, some video games are much easier to adapt onto the big screen than others, with games like The Last of Us, specifically story kind of adventure games, offering a deep, complex story. These are much easier to translate into live-action shows because, well, they already have a good original story to utilize, as well as 3D realistic animations that are much easier to cast real people into said roles. as opposed to trying to adapt something like Minecraft into a movie. To me, as a video game fan, there's like a few things that I really hope that I get out of when I see one of my favorite franchise being turned into a movie or a show. One, an accurate depiction of the characters and the world of the video game that I've fallen in love with, and two, an ability to capture the essence of the original story and that world that the video game takes place in. Again, let's think back to M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar: The Last Airbender versus Netflix's attempt at making an Avatar: The Last Airbender series. The amount of time, effort, and detail that went into Netflix's series into capturing the amazing and fleshed out world of Last Airbender, to me, is extremely obvious. You can really tell that they took their time and really wanted to be respectful in adapting a world that a fan base had fallen in love with. And in many ways, they wanted to right the wrongs of the Avatar movie from 2010. And to me, HBO's The Last of Us is one of the best examples of how to adapt a super popular story adventure video game into an amazing live-action series. So The Last of Us Season 2 is an adaptation of the video game sequel, The Last of Us Part 2. The story largely revolving around the closing events of the first Last of Us game and the first season of the show, where we see Joel and Ellie dealing with the consequences of Joel's violence and his choice to stop the Fireflies from performing a non-survivable surgery on Ellie in order to develop a cure for this fungus zombie virus. Joel making an impossible decision, basically to kill every Firefly in order to save the girl who over the course of the first season in the first video game he has come to love and care for as a daughter. The events of Season 2 of The Last of Us reflecting the events of Last of Us Part 2, the video game, dealing with the fallout of this violence in this scene and this choice a few years later, as Abby, the daughter of a Firefly surgeon, and the remaining Fireflies look to get revenge, in their mind, justice for Joel's actions. Over the years, we've seen that Joel and Ellie's relationship has become strained. Joel struggling to deal with Ellie's independence as an adult and accepting that his lie to her about what happened with the Fireflies is really at the core of their separation. Now, as I said earlier, adapting a kind of adventure story game like The Last of Us on paper is a lot easier than adapting something like Doom. The Last of Us is a super fleshed out story adventure game taking place in a much more grounded, relatable world. At its core, it's a fun and different take on the classic zombie post-apocalyptic world and the human story that goes along with it. And again, because The Last of Us video game story is so goddamn good, there really isn't much need to make changes to it in order to put it on the big screen with actual real actors. And thank God that the showrunners realized this when they were adapting this show and focused their attention on capturing and adapting the world and the feeling of The Last of Us as a whole, instead of making wholesale changes to the story and the characters. Again, this is where many live actions, especially video game live actions in the past, have really struggled, in making completely unnecessary changes to a story that is on its own already more than good enough. And while, yes, The Last of Us show has made some changes and tweaks to The Last of Us story, basically all of the changes that they've made really serve as more of a way to kind of further expand upon the world of The Last of Us that was created in the video game. For example, let's take the introduction of the new character, Gale, the town therapist that we see introduced in The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1. In a traumatic post-apocalyptic world where people basically have a traumatic encounter and events happen to them almost on the daily, to me it does make a lot of sense for a therapist to be a valuable commodity when trying to establish some sort of sense of civilization. As well, the character of Gale, I think, really serves as a great way to show the transformation of Joel and Ellie's relationship from Season 1 to Season 2, from the first video game to the sequel. The story of Joel and Ellie in Season 1 being one of a traumatized, hardened man who lost his daughter, who was now thrust into taking care of this girl who could possibly be the savior of the world, only for them to come together, developing this bond of father and daughter. While in Season 2, we see now that this bond has fractured, Ellie growing distant from Joel, while he struggles with the consequences of the decision that he made, again, to not sacrifice this girl that he has come to love and care for as a daughter. The show then ties this new character, Gale, into the story of The Last of Us by making her the wife of one of the video game characters, Eugene. Eugene being a very minor background character in The Last of Us 2 that is really only ever mentioned as being part of the Jackson community, one of the few people in this world who actually died of old age in the video game. In the show, however, this is very much changed. In a conversation between Gale and Joel, we learned that Joel, a few years prior to episode 1, killed Eugene in some kind of argument or conflict, creating this really amazing conflict scene between Joel and Gale in season 2, episode 1.
You shot and killed my husband. You killed Eugene. And I resent you for it. No, maybe a little more than that. I hate you for it. I hate you for it.
This is the type of change to the original video game story in The Last of Us show that I think works so goddamn well. It isn't a major change at all. It's probably not even a change that many fans of the video game series maybe even noticed. But what it does do is further flesh out the Last of Us world and gives a minor character in the video game a much more impactful role on the overall story as a whole. They aren't just throwing out what made The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 so great as a video game and as a story. If anything, it seems like The Last of Us Season 2 is going to follow up on where Season 1 left off in being an extremely faithful story adaptation. Really though, where I think that The Last of Us really nails this video game adaptation is the casting of its many characters. I mean, Pedro Pascal is a freaking gift. This guy is an amazing actor. I mean, he was amazing as Oberyn Martell, my goat in Game of Thrones, and goddamn does he do an amazing job as Joel. The same can be said of Bella Ramsey, the actress who plays Ellie in the show, who really does an amazing job in capturing all of the kind of character quirks and personality traits that Ashley Johnson embodied in her performance voice acting Ellie in the video game. I mean, she even does an amazing job capturing Ellie's voice. Like, there's so many times that I hear Bella Ramsey speak in this series, in this show, and it almost feels like I'm hearing Ashley Johnson's voice from the video game. And when you realize that Ramsey is British, and when I say British, I mean hella British, it makes the performance, to me, all the more impressive. This isn't just limited to Ellie and Joel either. Whether it's Anna Torv's performance as Tess in Season 1, or Isabella Merck's performance as Dina in Season 2. The show really has done an amazing job in casting these roles. As well, the actors and actresses have done an amazing job in embodying a set of already very much fleshed out characters from the video game franchise. Again, let's take it back to Avatar: The Last Airbender for a moment. To me, this is probably one of the most noticeable changes from M. Night Shyamalan's Airbender disaster movie to Netflix's Airbender series. When you watch Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender series, it really feels like you are watching true, actual depictions of Aang, Katara, Sokka, and Zuko. Their performances very much, to me, embody all of the personality traits and personality kind of quirks from the characters in the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. From Sokka's goofy machismo, to Aang's happy-go-lucky carefree personality, to Zuko's angsty sad boy vibes. And I think that HBO's The Last of Us also does the exact same thing here in all of the characters from the video game in their adaptation of the show, especially for Joel and Ellie. I think, though, my favorite thing about The Last of Us show is how it seamlessly captures all sorts of video game mechanics from the video game into the show. I said earlier, this is probably one of the toughest things about making a video game adaptation. Like, how do we capture all of these kind of iconic mechanics and moments and things from a video game without, like, overly drawing attention to them and making it feel cheesy as fuck? Again, like in the Doom movie, for example. I think that this scene specifically, where Dina and Ellie go and take out a clicker in Season 2, Episode 1, really does an amazing job in demonstrating how The Last of Us does this. We watch Ellie and Dina climb this box van in order to investigate a dilapidated shopping market where they suspect infected might be hiding. Even just something as simple as these characters climbing up on this van to get to the window is an obvious reference to the video game mechanics for people who have played the game, as traversing the world through climbing and moving objects to gain entry to barred-off places is an extremely important part of The Last of Us and exploring its world. Next, we see both of them wait at the window, listening inside for the distinct sounds that the different types of infected make. Again, for fans of the video game, this is a very obvious reference to the listen mode in the game. The listen mode being a very core mechanic where Joel and Ellie focus listening to their surroundings, which allows you to pinpoint enemies. But the way that they do this here in the show is so subtle and perfect that you wouldn't even realize that it was a game mechanic. Like, if this was done in something like Doom, it would have been like way more on the nose, way more cheesy. movie. They probably would have like completely replicated the way that the video game mechanic works by giving us like outlines and shadows of all of the zombies that they hear, similar to how they do in the video game, and it just would have been cheesy as fuck. Next, we watch the two girls quietly enter the building and in a wordless, hilarious scene, go over their plan to take out the clicker. Not only is this scene really funny, it perfectly encapsulates the personality and the relationship of these two characters, and it also illustrates multiple mechanics from the video game, but again, in a way that is so subtle, it is perfect. Stealth is a massive part of the Last of Us game, as making too much sound will draw the hosts of infected down onto Ellie and Joel. We see both of the girls taking care not to make too much noise when they enter into the building, both communicating through gestures and hunkering low in a crouched stance to avoid making noise. Again, this is another more obvious reference to the video game where you spend large parts walking through buildings crouched down in order to avoid making too much sound. Ellie then reaches down to pick up an old bottle and then tosses it down the hallway to draw the clicker's attention so she can sneak up on it to kill it with her knife. Again, this is another core video game mechanic. Throughout The Last of Us, you use all sorts of items from bottles to bricks to create distractions for the infected so you can sneak up on them and kill them with your knife. This makes complete sense, as The Last of Us is a survival game, a game where supplies, especially bullets, are a limited commodity. Again, this is a post-apocalyptic world. So killing infected stealthily with your knife not only saves ammo, but it draws less attention than would firing a gun and potentially drawing all sorts of zombie and infected on top of you. This is how you do a video game adaptation. This is how you incorporate core mechanics of a video game into a show or a movie by doing it subtly in a way that makes sense to the world and the story and doesn't draw us out of the immersion of the story. But yet it's still obvious enough of a reference to fans of the video game franchise where they can go, oh my god, holy shit, that's just like in the video game. This is also something that I think the Fallout series on Amazon Prime did a really good job with as well, specifically in how they incorporated the VATS or kind of the bullet time mechanic into the series. I'm thinking specifically that showdown scene that the ghoul has in the shantytown. Again, this is how you make a video game adaptation. This is how you do justice to a franchise that has garnered thousands and thousands of hardcore fans, by being respectful to the story that you're trying to tell, the world, and the characters, and by very subtly making nods to moments and things in the video game that don't pull the audience out and make them realize that, oh yeah, this is a video game movie or show. To me, The Last of Us does all of this brilliantly, from the faithfulness that it tells the story of the video game, to the amazing casting and the performances of the actors and actresses that really embody a group of characters that fans of the video game franchise have come to love, and the way that the show very subtly references and pays homage to very core mechanics from the video game, but it does so in a way that isn't cheesy or overly draws attention to the fact that yes, this is a video game adaptation. To me, The Last of Us truly has cracked the code of how to adapt a video game into a live-action show or series. And I can really only hope that all of those execs out there in Hollywood maybe learn a thing or two the next time they decide that they want to adapt one of my favorite video game franchises into a movie. But let's be honest, guys, they probably won't. As always, guys, with these videos, these are just my thoughts and opinions, so feel free to let me know yours in the comment section down below. Let me know, do you agree with me? Do you think The Last of Us is one of the best video game adaptations of all time? Or is there another video game adaptation out there that I haven't thought of? If you did enjoy this video, guys, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as it is the easiest way to support me, and it really does go a long way in putting these videos into the algorithm. As well, if you did enjoy this video, then why don't you check out some of my other content on screen now. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace, love, adieu.